Ladies and gentlemen, our Lieutenant Governor, Jacqueline Coleman.
Thank you all so much. I got to leave the Kentucky Teacher of the Year Awards and came to the Post-Secondary Education Conference, so today is a good day. Thank you all for having me. Governor Beshear asked me to share his regards. He had to stay at the Teacher of the Year Awards a little bit longer than I did, so he wishes he could be here with you, but trusted that you would feel pretty at home with the teacher. So hopefully I can fill that role. But it is so humbling to see so many distinguished, whoa, looky there. It is so humbling to see so many distinguished educators here, all of whom are working collaboratively to advance higher education, career opportunities, and economic development all across the Commonwealth. As your Lieutenant Governor, I take every opportunity that I have to say that the Commonwealth of Kentucky is a proud partner in your efforts. In Kentucky, we are focused on building a cradle-to-career job, training, and education system, a support network that equips Kentuckians with the tools that they need to succeed from pre-K through middle school, high school, post-secondary education, and eventually into their professional paths. As you know, there are gaps between every one of those stages along the educational journey. And at each transition step, we lose more and more of our kids. One of the largest gaps happens to be between high school and post-secondary education. Higher education is what gives our students the expertise to excel in their chosen field. It is absolutely vital for attracting and filling the jobs of the future. And I don't know if you guys have been paying attention, but we got a whole lot of jobs of the future to fill here in Kentucky, thanks to Governor Beshear's leadership. I am a firm believer that education is the solution to every single challenge that we face in this Commonwealth. I have been challenged on that, and I've had people that disagree with me, but none of them have been able to prove me wrong yet, so I'm just going to keep saying it. But it truly is part of every single solution that we have. Everything from lifting our families out of poverty to jump-starting our economy, to building a brighter future for everyone, so long as it is equitable and accessible to everyone across the Commonwealth. Of course, as educational leaders across the state of Kentucky, I'm not telling any of you anything that you don't already know and do every single day, because none of us pursues a career in education for fame or riches. If we did, we were going to be very disappointed. But we are in this to make a difference, and what we do makes a difference every day. We do it because we love our community, because we love our students, and because we invest in the future of Kentucky's economy every single day. That is why I went into this profession. I grew up in one of Kentucky's tiniest towns, a place called Bergen. It's your quintessential small town in Kentucky, for those of you who have never been there. It's got about 1,000 people and a four-way stop. And that's it. And, you know, I always say it's the kind of place where you know all your neighbors, but your neighbors also know all your business. But needless to say, it was home, and it helped me to become who I was. But speaking of Bergen, my former boss is here today. My very first boss, Superintendent Dick Webb, who is on the board at BCTC now, and I have to tell on him, he sent me a text a few days ago in true Mr. Webb fashion that be taking notes, and he would send me his critiques of my speech after today. So, Mr. Webb, I hope I do okay. But yeah, he was my very first boss. So, but on a serious note, Bergen is a place just like every other small town in Kentucky where we learn to look out for one another. And it was there that I learned the Kentucky values that would come to define who I am. And there is no better way to share those values with you than to tell you the story of Emma. And some of you may have heard this before, but It's proof that what you do every day changes the trajectory of our kids' lives. I was a high school social studies teacher and basketball coach. And one day, I had a student walk into my classroom and ask me for a basketball schedule. And I had no idea who she was. She was new to our school. She had just moved in, so I gave it to her. She went on, and I didn't think another thing about it until the guidance counselor came to my room. And she said, I want to give you a heads up. There's a young lady that just transferred into our school, and she asked about basketball. I said, oh, I've already met her. I gave her a basketball schedule. And she said, well, I just want to show you, this is her enrollment record, K through 8, 2.5 pages long. Line after line after line of transferring and moving, transferring and moving. So what that told me was, even when she was enrolled in school, she wasn't really in school. And to make it matters worse, the guidance counselor told me that the family members who enrolled her in school were under the influence at the time. So I'm embarrassed to say that my initial reaction was, well, she won't be here very long. So a couple weeks later, my husband and I are at Coleman because it's fall, and this is Kentucky, and that's what you do. And my phone rang from a number I didn't know. And it was this young lady. And her name was Emma, and Emma said, Coach, I don't have anywhere to go. I said, what do you mean you don't have anywhere to go? Where's your mom? Where's your dad? Where's your, keep going down the line. She said, well, my mom's in trouble again, and I don't know my real dad. And I thought, okay. So I had no idea what to do. Chris and I got in the car, and as I'm putting on my seatbelt, I looked at him and I was like, now you realize what's about to happen, right? And the truth is that neither one of us did. So that day, that young lady named Emma packed a duffel bag of clothes, moved in to our home for what we thought would be a few months until her family could get back on their feet again. And I will just say this. She was a 14-year-old, redheaded teenage girl. That's all you need to know. I was her basketball coach. I was now her mother figure. I was a teacher in her school who was friends with all of her teachers, so I knew everything. And this was the first time in her life that she had been in a situation where there were expectations and limitations and consequences and all of those lovely things that we get to do as parents and as educators. And I'm just going to boil it down, the first 2 years down to this, is it was hard. There were days where I thought, I don't know if either one of us are going to live to see her graduation, and I wasn't sure which one it wasn't going to be, to be quite honest with you. And as we got to know Emma, she had this light about her. There was something, it was that it factor, and every one of you know kids on your campus or that you have had in class before that have that it factor. And she had it. Under that rough exterior, there was somebody that was really special. There was somebody that had what I thought was potential. And how many kids do we see every day who have that potential, and all they need is one person. They need one person to help lift them up. Well, luckily, we had way more than one person, because one of the first things we learned about Emma, and my husband figured it out. I have to give him credit for this. I did not catch it. She could not read. Freshman in high school, could not read. She read on a 3rd grade level. And I saw the potential that she had on the basketball court. This is kind of like a tale of two kids, right? You have the basketball player and you have and you cannot be a basketball player unless you are a student first. And I was really perplexed at, Lord, why did this 14-year-old end up in my house right now? Because I don't think we have enough time left on the clock here. Any of you know that with when it comes to recruiting and for college athletes, it starts pretty early. And the first thing that happens is you watch the kid play and you go, man, that kid's really good. And the next thing you say is, what are their grades like? Because that's how you whittle out probably 90% of them. And so I had this kid with all this potential, and I didn't know if we had enough time. And it made me sick to my stomach to think that we would run out of time before she could get to where I thought she could go. And for me, the goal for her was always college. I tell this story from the perspective of a high school teacher because that's who I was. That's who I am. But the reality is that I knew that the key to her future, the key to changing her life, to turning her life around, was getting her into college. I didn't know where it was going to be. I didn't know how we were going to get there, but we were going to get there. So those first 2 years were tough. But about her junior year, I saw her start to turn a corner. And I saw her start to become that young woman that I knew she could be. And here's why. Her teacher showed up before school and worked with her. They stayed after school when we had games, and she didn't have practice after school, and they helped. And she asked for it. And that's what teachers do, right? You can't catch a kid up who reads on a third grade level in ninth grade between the hours of 8 and 3. That just isn't, that's not reality. And so our village showed up and did the work with her every single day in the classroom. And time started to march on, and then we get to all of the things at the end of your high school career. And I promise y'all, when that 14-year-old child moved in with me, I thought the best thing I can do is help her graduate high school. That's where she was in her life. Get her across that stage, get her to graduate. As time went on, I thought, you know, I think she might be able to play in college. I think she might be able to make it in college. You know, there'll be tutors and people that can help her. You know, and I really, quite frankly, always sold her short. And Emma became the first person in her whole family to graduate high school. She graduated with honors. She signed a Division I basketball scholarship to play at the University of Texas at A&M at Corpus Christi. Was on the academic honor roll, broke every record we were at East Jessamine High School, boys and girls, that ever existed, and was a Kentucky, Indiana All-Star. Went on to college. I had a storied career there where she was on the all-academic team. Never would I have ever thought I would be saying those words. And top 10 in almost every statistical category in her school's history. From there, she went on to play professional basketball in Europe. Y'all, this is a child who could not read when she was 14 years old. And being able to cross that bridge from high school into college has changed her life. It has changed her life, and more importantly, it has changed her future family's life. And so in December of 19, 18? I don't remember. We adopted Emma, and she officially became a part of our family. And she always was, but we decided that we would make it official her senior year in college. And so as this child went across, she's traveled the world to play a game that she loves only because she got it done in the classroom. And she had educators and academic advisors and people who believed in her and cared about her enough to say, this kid's got it, and she needs a little bit more help, and so I'm going to show up for her. And that's our job. That's what we do. We show up for the kids who need us the most, no matter where they come from, what their zip code is, how much money they have, what color skin they have. We show up for the kids because they are the future of this Commonwealth. They are at your fingertips, and you have the opportunity to transform their lives and their future families' lives. It's what y'all do every day. And this is the perspective that I have taken with me as an educator to the Lieutenant Governor's office. We haven't had that in my lifetime. Not since Martha Lane Collins, many of you know, is our only female governor so far. But just saying. And I have another fellow lieutenant governor here, the mayor for life. Thank you so much, Jerry, for being here. But you know, if you would have told me on our inauguration day, on that ice cold December day, what was coming in just a few months, I'm not sure I would have believed you, and I probably would have asked for my money back, quite frankly. But like leaders all across the spectrum, whether you are in healthcare, whether you are an elected official, a business leader, or you're in higher education, we've all had a master class in leadership in the last 2 years, and we've experienced firsthand what it means to learn the hard way, and what it means to lead in situations where there is no roadmap. There is no blueprint for what we were up against. And one thing that has been abundantly clear to me through this pandemic is the issues that are plaguing our communities. And they were always there, lying dormant just below the surface, just enough for us to say, yeah, we know that's a problem, but I've got all these other things to do. And then during COVID, we no longer could afford to neglect those issues. And COVID-19 brought those challenges to the forefront. And I want to touch on a couple of those that impact your life's work every single day. And like you, I know how tragic it is when we fail the lost, the lonely, and the left behind before they ever walk through the doors of a classroom. In the richest nation on earth and all across this Commonwealth, there are still children who don't have access to early childhood education or high-quality childcare. And while that might seem a lifetime away from you and the work that you do, we all know that this has major ramifications on your work. That is the thing that is keeping women from re-entering the workforce, from going back and attempting at higher education credentials, degrees, certificates right now. And we also know that when our kids show up behind in kindergarten, they're really likely to stay behind from then on out. Emma was one of those kids, had it not been for the village around her. And I want you to think about that for a second. Are we willing to accept that a child's zip code will determine their opportunity and their future no matter what? We can't afford to do that. We cannot afford to do that. Instead of furthering the gap between the haves and the have-nots, what we should be doing is creating opportunities for generational and transformational change. And that's why we must work together to fund universal pre-K for every 4-year-old in this Commonwealth. Governor Beshear's budget included funding for the proposal for universal pre-K for all 4-year-olds. Unfortunately, the legislature did not approve that funding. But I am nothing if I'm not persistent. And I will not give up until universal pre-K is a reality for every single Kentucky child. The second challenge I want to talk about with you that you deal with every day is the mental health of our students. Last summer, as our students were preparing to return to in-person learning in the middle of a pandemic, I kept thinking about how hard it was going to be for them, not just academically, but certainly after a year of virtual learning, the emotional and social toll that would be taken on them as well as our educators. I mean, you think about it, we're professionals, and think about the frustration you felt, the uncertainty you felt, the paranoia that you felt, and the anxiety, and then put that on a kid in high school, making a decision about where they're going to go to college, or in college, making a decision about where they're going to go for their first job or for graduate school. And that weight is heavy on our kids. And I knew all too well, even before the pandemic, that our kids were struggling with their mental health. This is another one of those issues that laid right below that surface that we talked about, but kind of pushed to the side a little bit. So in 2018, before any of us knew what COVID even meant, the CDC reported to us that 1 in 5 American kids had a mental disorder like depression, anxiety, or substance abuse. 1 in 5. But only 20% of those kids receive care. In 2018, the Kentucky Youth Risk Behavior Survey reported that 30% of students reported feeling sad or hopeless to the point of stopping their usual activities. 57% of students with a major depressive episode did not receive mental health care. This is Kentucky, y'all. 15% of students seriously considered suicide. 15% of Kentucky students, and that's only what was reported. Now, these studies were done in 2018, so where are these students now? They're on your campuses. This is the challenge that we're all facing. Other reports that came out before the pandemic showed us that students wanted help addressing and improving their wellness, but they didn't know how or where to get it. And that stigma was a major barrier that came from many places: social media, family, religion, heritage, that kept students from seeking that help. And so I saw an opportunity here. In tandem with the increase in emotional distress, there was an increase in the desire for mental health services from students themselves. So here we were, the summer before students were heading back to in-person learning, and I kept hearing adults talking to other adults about student mental health. So I decided to change that. I set out to directly hear from our students in the state of Kentucky about the challenges they're facing and how we can support them. So I called up one of my thorns, Jason Glass, Commissioner Glass, and I said, I want to borrow your student advisory council. We got some important work to do. Y'all talk about some sharp kids. I mean, I always say the kids will save us. These kids will save us. They are as you can imagine. And so within a few weeks, we were off and running. And because it takes a village, we had a broad coalition of statewide support with us every step of the way. We had about a dozen members of the Student Advisory Council join our work group. We had representatives from regional educational co-ops, the Division of Family and Resource Youth Service Centers, and the Kentucky Department of Behavioral Health. And the next thing I know, we have launched the Student Mental Health Initiative, and it consisted of regional action summits so that we could hear directly from our experts, the students. The Student Advisory Council developed and implemented the action summits around the Commonwealth. This was not me. This was them. Our students led this charge in developing the process, in facilitating the conversation, and then they dove into the data. And they crafted several policy recommendations. And last month, the students and I presented these recommendations to the Interim Joint Committee on Education. The recommendations include elevating student voice, providing comprehensive suicide prevention. They were aghast that there is still suicide prevention resources that are on VHS. They have no idea what that is, right? But there really are. Allowing excused mental health absences and increasing and improving mental health professional development for our educators. And I am hopeful that these recommendations will be crafted into legislation this upcoming season. You can tell I'm a basketball coach. Session, sorry. And I will tell you this, those kids, they're young adults now, but every single one of those seniors on our advisory council that graduate high school are attending one of our colleges or universities right here in Kentucky. How exciting is that, right? Yeah. And because I'm still a student in higher education, and may be forever at this point, I am currently writing my dissertation on that work. So hopefully I'll get done with that in this decade, but we'll see about that. But these challenges that I speak of, early childhood education, student mental health, our P20 education system, they are the foundation of a healthy economy. It'll take all of us, elected officials, educators, parents, community members, working in lockstep to create and craft real, meaningful changes and to provide hope for an economy in need of stability and to create the foundation that we need today for a better workforce tomorrow and for generations to come. And I stand ready to work with anyone who shares those values because we find ourselves in a really unique time right now. Despite the hardships that too many Kentuckians are facing, the fact is that the future of our economy has never been brighter. Kentucky is in an economic boom like we've never seen before. Since Governor Beshear and I took office in December of 2019, we've had $20 billion worth of investments from the private sector that's going to create more than 37,000 jobs across Kentucky. Ford and SK Innovation invested $6 billion and will create 6,000 good-paying jobs in tiny little Glen on the outside, right on the outskirts of Elizabethtown. These two projects have Kentucky poised to become the electric vehicle battery capital of America. We also have Pratt Paper in Henderson. It is the cleanest, greenest paper mill in the world. And there's Firestone Industrial, who is building a $50 million facility in Whitley County. And we are quickly becoming the agri-tech capital of the world as well. Companies like 80 Acres in northern Kentucky, Black Soil, Appalachia, and App Harvest in Moorhead are revolutionizing agriculture and helping us feed a growing country right here in Kentucky. So what excites me as a rural Kentuckian is that opportunity is coming to every corner of this Commonwealth, not just our big cities. The Commonwealth is investing in our communities like never before to help build roads and bridges, to update water systems, and bring high-speed internet to every corner of the Commonwealth. And I got to give a lot of credit here. The governor and the legislature came together to pass a $250 million package for cleaner water systems across Kentucky, and they have pledged $90 million to bring high-speed internet to some of the most unserved portions of this state. That's what bipartisanship looks like. Yeah, you can clap for bipartisanship. On top of all of this, we have the lowest unemployment rate we've ever had. We have the largest rainy day fund we've ever had. And the good news doesn't stop in Kentucky's economy, because with your help, we've made significant investments in post-secondary education as well. One of our first acts after we were inaugurated was to remove the fee for Kentuckians to take the GED test. A $120 testing fee was one barrier for people earning their GED. And statistics show that if you don't have a high school diploma or GED, you are more likely to be unemployed, you're more likely to live in poverty, you're more likely to have poor health, and you're more likely to need public assistance and be incarcerated at some point in the future. In Kentucky, we have over 300,000 working-age adults who don't have a high school diploma or GED yet. 62% of Kentucky's jobs will require some level of post-secondary education or job training, and employers increasingly need to fill these middle-skill jobs. At a time when our economy is roaring with lots of opportunity, we have far too many adults who are not qualified for these good-paying careers. And working with our higher education systems, we are going to change it. I'm happy to report that since January of 2020, 9,300 Kentuckians have taken advantage of a free GED program and have begun the process of earning their GED. That's 9,300 Kentucky families that will be changed forever. So right now, it's a unique time because we can and should be both fiscally responsible but also make transformative investments for our people. And let me tell you something. You hear a lot of talk about economic development and job creation, and that's important. But they are the end game. The future of Kentucky's economy is in our classrooms and in our college campuses right now. And if we value education and keep doing things right, we can take 2 years of progress and turn it into 20 years of prosperity, and that is exactly what this Education First administration is set on doing. And when we work together, especially when things get tough, we know what makes Kentucky special. We've had countless tragedies, from the tornadoes in the west to the flooding in the east and a pandemic in between. And I think about all the times I've been to those places. And not once did I hear the word Democrat or Republican or conservative or liberal. Not one time. Because when crisis happens, we have each other's back. And we are fortunate and blessed to be leaders of such a compassionate state. But we absolutely fail our people when all we do is bicker about politics and things that really don't matter. So I don't want to spend another day arguing about things that don't matter. I want to take the last 2 years, both our tragedies and our triumphs, so that we can recalibrate and rededicate ourselves to leading this Commonwealth in a way that will make our kids and grandkids proud. There are no blue tornadoes, just like there are no red floods. And natural disasters don't care what your political beliefs are, and neither do the biggest problems plaguing this state. You face them every single day through the eyes of your students. You will see Governor Beshear and I continue to work to create a better Kentucky for everybody, because our citizens deserve nothing less than a government that works tirelessly to make a positive difference in their lives. All of you know our state motto: united we stand, divided we fall. When we are at our best, we get that first part. I've seen it with my own eyes over and over again. But the divided we fall part, let's not tempt the latter portion of that motto. God bless you, and God bless the Commonwealth of Kentucky.